as the title said, how to forgive. How to forgive people who have wronged you, how to forgive life for what it's brought to you, how to forgive God and the universe and everyone around you. I think one constant in life is that parents, friends, it's inevitable that people are going to let you down. It's inevitable that you're going to get hurt. It's inevitable that you're going to let yourself down. And I think it's important to familiarize yourself with not only letting go of these things and understanding that these things happen, but also forgiving yourself for it and forgiving others for it, so that you don't wound up being someone who's just so full of bitterness and anger and all these things. I think a lot of what happens with autoimmune diseases and people saying that, and people becoming bitter, to be honest, a lot of it has to do with holding in so much resentment and bitterness and all these negative feelings. And so when I was 15, I went online and I really searched on how you're supposed to forgive, how you can actually forgive something and get over it fully. And I didn't really find the answer I was searching for, but I did find a lot of tips. But I noticed that another thing that was really out there is people would say, let go. And I would be like, what am I supposed to let go of? What do I let go of? This doesn't make any sense to me. And I created my own formula that works for me anytime someone does something wrong, anytime I do something wrong, or I don't follow through with something that I'm supposed to actually follow through with. And I'm going to share that guide because to me it's helped me so much. I recently lost 2 of my best friends. Thankfully not due to anything like death or anything like that, but I do think that they weren't very nice to me, and I got the courage to actually just walk away and step out. And I have to forgive myself for letting myself go through that situation, and I also have to forgive them for any faults that have happened in the situation, because in most situations where there's any toxicness going on, it's almost always double-sided, and so there's a lot of forgiveness that has to go around in order for someone to move past that situation. Anyways, so the first thing that I wrote down, which I wrote down on my trusty cute notebook that I got from my boss, is to know and understand that it's not personal. I think compared to a situation that I went through myself, I think the #1 thing is I would always make it like a personal thing. A few years ago, my dad left my life without warning, and it was very difficult for me not to take it personally, and my parents got separated, divorced, and I know that there's so many things out there that could happen where people actually own those situations and they take it personal and they feel like it's because of them, or even if they don't feel like it's because of them, they feel like something is happening to them directly. But I think understanding that my parents, they have their own life, you know? I may not agree with their situation, but I don't have to own it. I don't have to own that situation and take it as my own, you know? I can make my own decisions, I can flourish on my own, and it has nothing to do with me. No one that anyone does to you is personal. If you're walking across the street and someone slaps you in the face, it's not personal. It's not because they hate you. They were just having a bad day and they looked for someone to assault across the street. And I think applying that knowledge through every single phase of life is so important, so that you know that even when your friends do something wrong, it's almost always because of something else going on in their life. And even though you can say that there has to be some consequences for their actions, you have to actually understand that it has nothing to do with you. It is not personal. You can forgive the situation because it's not personal, but you can also say, I'm done, I'm out. Even in a relationship with things like infidelity, you always have to understand, and that's the toughest pill to swallow, is it has nothing to do with you. Anyone who actually cheats while they're in a relationship, while they've been committed to someone, whether by marriage or whatever it is not okay. No one would want to do that to someone they love. No one would want to hurt someone. No one would be okay with living in such a horrible environment. And so the environment of lying to someone that you love. So the people who actually go through with that, they don't love themselves. That's not something that someone who loves themselves would do. And so if they don't love themselves, how are they supposed to love you? It really isn't personal at all. Not this much personal. And then I read this book, Miss Mastery of Love. And then I read this book, Mastery of Love, which teaches so much about how you're supposed to love yourself and how you have to forgive others in order to have a good relationship with yourself. And there's so many things that it talks about that, in my opinion, is just so important for people to walk around knowing, just so that you don't walk around as a wounded human being and adding more negativity into the world. I think there's already so much stuff going on that we don't need an extra person who's going through psychological warfare every single day into the world. I think there's somewhere here that talks about forgiveness, and to me, that's the most important part. Here's what it says about forgiveness. Once we open the wounds, we are going to clean the wounds of all the poison. How are we going to do this? Forgiveness. There is no other way but to forgive. There is no other way but forgiveness to clean the wounds of all the poison. You must forgive those who hurt you, even if what they did to you is unforgivable in your mind. You will forgive them not because they deserve to be forgiven, but because you do not want to suffer and hurt yourself every time you remember what they did to you. It doesn't matter what others did to you. You are going to forgive them because you don't want to feel sick all the time. Forgiveness is for your own mental healing. You will forgive because you feel compassion for yourself. Forgiveness is an act of self-love. The only way you heal your wounds is to forgive. You will forgive your ex-husband for injustice. You will know you have forgiven something when you see him and you don't feel anything anymore. We also learn to suffer just to punish those who abuse us. Many times we don't even know why we are so upset with our parents, our friends, our mate. We are upset, and if for some reason the other person asks us for forgiveness, right away we start to cry and say, "Oh no, you forgive me." Forgive others, and you will see miracles start to happen in your life. First, make a list of everyone you believe you need to ask for forgiveness. Then ask them for forgiveness. If there's not enough time to call everyone, ask for their forgiveness in your prayers and through your dreams. Second, make a list of people who hurt you, all the people you need to forgive. Start with your parents, your brothers, your sisters, your cat, your dog, your government, and God. Now, you are going to forgive others by knowing that whatever they did to you has nothing to do with you. Once you have this awareness and you do not take it personally, compassion and understanding will lead you to forgiveness. Start working on forgiveness and start practicing forgiveness. It will be difficult at first, but then it just becomes a habit. The only way to recover forgiveness is to practice again and again. Every single time you remember and you feel that anger and you think, how could they have done this to me? You have to practice and practice and practice and practice. And then see if you can forgive yourself. When you forgive yourself, self-acceptance begins and self-love grows. That is the supreme forgiveness, when you finally forgive yourself. Create an act of power and forgive yourself for everything you have done in your whole life. And if you believe in past lives, forgive yourself. Forgive everything you believe you did in all your past lives. The concept of karma is only true because we believe it is true. From this point on, you can start all over again. Then life becomes easy. Because forgiveness is the only way to clean emotional wounds. Forgiveness is the only way to heal them. That is so beautiful to me because I think it just makes such a difference in our lives. It's not worth it to go around being angry. It's not worth it to go around feeling this bitterness and this resentment for others. It's not, there's so much more. There's so much more. And my second point is to use love and kindness to your advantage. I think the most important part for me was actually using that as a weapon instead of something that is a weakness. I think some people see it as a weakness for you to be really forgiving and really understanding and really compassionate to others when they do you wrong, or even when they're not doing you wrong. And to me, I decided to use it as a weapon. I am going to hold on to this so that I do not become bitter. Every single time I feel like my parents or anyone did something wrong, I remember that I love them. I have so much compassion and love and all of this for them. It doesn't mean that I have to accept what happened. Same with friends, same with a boyfriend. It doesn't mean that I have to keep taking what someone is doing to me, but it helps me understand. It helps me let go of that victim and sadness and anger, and I can actually look at it and be like, you know what, I love them so much and I love the time that we had together. And instead of saying, oh, I can go back to such and such situation, I look at it and I say, I'm so grateful that I had that time with this person. I'm so grateful that we traveled together. I'm so grateful that we did this and this together. And when it's time, it's time. So I think there's a way that we can use that to our advantage, as opposed to looking at it as a weakness, instead of feeling like, oh, I feel like I always want to go back to a situation where I got hurt. And you just flip the switch a little bit, and now it's not perfect, but nearly perfect. The third thing is to realize it's okay. I think this is very simple, and I don't know if people will understand it in the same way that I did, but realizing that it's fine, it's okay, it's not something that you have to do now. You don't have to forgive everything in order to be okay. Life will go on, the sun will set, the sun will rise, the moon will come up, and it's not something that's urgent. Your body will know when it's time to let something go. And I think if you trust yourself, it's funny how that works. I think if you trust yourself, it will automatically give you a sign that it wants to let go of something. And so I think it's important not to rush yourself into forgiveness, not to rush yourself into healing or anything, and just to pay attention and live slowly and wait for those feelings to come up by themselves. The fourth thing is to appreciate the lessons that were learned. I think every situation in life has a lesson to teach us. And for me personally, it was extremely difficult to face the fact that a lot of these things are lessons, and that's just how life works. It's shitty, it's not ideal. It's not ideal, but that's just what it is. And so once you just take everything as a lesson, as like, okay, next time I'll be able to look out for this. So many times in my life, especially this is very important when trying to forgive yourself, so many times in my life, I look at a situation and I say, okay, next time I'll do it differently. When I feel like I've spent too much money and I don't have the means for that, I remind myself, next time I'll do better. When I speak to someone the wrong way and I feel regret, I apologize to them, but I also tell myself, it's okay, next time we'll bite our tongue. Any situation, there's always going to be a next time. Don't disservice yourself by being so hard on yourself all the time. Change comes from loving yourself. You can't hate yourself into change. You can't hate yourself into stopping to make bad decisions to you or others. It doesn't work like that. And so I think it's important to appreciate the lessons learned, and every single time something happens where you feel like defeated or annoyed or frustrated at yourself, I think it's so important to just appreciate the lesson learned, and every single time say, okay, next time I got it. As I said, the sun goes up and comes down every single day without fail. So you too can do the same thing. You can say, next time when this challenge comes in, I'll look at it differently. I'll take a different approach. I'll speak slowly. I'll speak softer. I'll do all these things. And that's when your brain will actually start to change and address situations in that way. Now, the last and fifth thing is to let it go. Let it go by thinking about it when you must. Think about the situation when it comes up. Sometimes I'll be driving and I remember something, and I appreciate the thought, I appreciate the memory, I appreciate the nostalgia, I appreciate thinking about the good times, the nice times, the love, and I also appreciate the moments where I'm thinking about the horrible things that someone did and having so much anger towards the situation. I think it's so important to look at both sides when it comes to those things, and to balance it as well. You have a right to be angry if someone has done something wrong to you. You have a right to be upset. And so if you appreciate both sides of it, you appreciate the nostalgia for not making you into a bitter person and for also having compassion for the other person. And you appreciate the anger for also making you realize that you have to stand up for yourself and you won't stand for this any longer. And Also, when you feel any grief adjacent feelings is feelings of sadness, of nostalgia, of missing someone, of longing, of feeling like you want to go back. And I think when you feel those things, I always just appreciate it. I always just say I'm lucky. I'm extremely lucky to have a situation where I feel like I miss my father or my family or my dad or different things, because many people out there don't have those things. They've never felt that way because they've never had something that they loved so much that it was so difficult to let go. And so I think if you look at it from the perspective as like, gosh, I am lucky. I'm one hell of a lucky girl to actually be feeling this upset about a friendship breakup because of how much love we share together. It becomes easier to come to terms with yourself feeling that way. It is normal to be confused. It is normal to feel like you want to go back. It is normal to feel all these things. And validate your own feelings. Be your own, be your own fortress. Talk to yourself. Talk to God. Talk to the universe. Talk, and get all those things out your system so that you can finally learn to let things go. And you'll find that if you do this, you don't need to do half the work. Everything else is known in our body. Our body will know when to let something go, when to forget about a situation, when to just let it go. And when you're driving 5 years after something happened and the thought replays in your brain and you feel yourself rising into emotion and you feel yourself getting angry, you take a deep breath in and out, smile because you remember something that was once so great in your life, and you let it go with the wind. You let it go, just as when you're driving on the highway and you see all the trees passing by. Do you remember what the tree looked like? No. You just appreciate it and let it flow. If you practice this and practice this and practice this and practice this, life becomes so much sweeter and so much easier to bear. It doesn't feel like there's a huge load on your back every other day. And so I think this is something that young people will get I think you'll be able to fulfill your whole potential once you start thinking about all the good things that are around you and the good things that can come out of hardship situations, and of letting go of someone that you love, and of forgiving people instead of holding in a grudge and all that stuff. The last thing that I will talk about is feeling like you have to remind yourself about something that went wrong so that you don't make the same mistake again. I read this book that said, when you have a kid, when you have a kid, let's say for example, a kid is walking down to the kitchen and he taps the stove. Oh my god, I burnt myself. Look. Every time he passes the stove, he doesn't have to fear. He doesn't have to say, oh my god, the stove, and develop a trauma response to it. Our body knows. Trust your brain. Your body knows. You don't have to traumatize yourself every single time and remember, oh, this person cheated on me. Oh, this person did this to me. Oh, this person betrayed me. Every time you're walking through any stage of life, you are going to sabotage the good things that life has to offer for you. So trust that your body knows. It knows not to make the same mistake again. It knows not to spend that money lousily again. It knows not to trust such and such person again. It knows the red flags to look out for. You don't have to keep traumatizing yourself all over again. Let it go and trust yourself. Every single time that you feel some sort of anger at yourself or some sort of worry that you will make the right decision, know that your brain automatically is programmed to learn its lesson. You're fine. You're fine. Let it go. Relax. Smell the coffee. Enjoy yourself. It's not worth all your energy, And so reminding myself of these things for the past 3 years has helped me tremendously. I used to be such an angry kid. I used to walk around feeling angry, feeling depressed, feeling like my energies were drained. And I remember sometimes I would wake up with a heavy chest, go to sleep with a heavy chest, walk around with a heavy chest. No music would help, no YouTube videos would help, no books would help, until I actually decided, okay, I can't do this anymore. I have to let all this go. I hope some of these things have been able to help at least even one person. I think some of these things are so important. You can interpret them personally. It's a very personal thing where you get your own personal message that works for you, just like a puzzle, and it'll just fit. So I hope some of that helped.